You guys have a great class. Over to you.
Thank you for the introduction. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another wonderful workshop here with Michaels and Zebra pens. My name is Guno Park, and I will be sharing some of my ideas and my techniques and the way that I like to think about drawing and forms and light. Before we get started, once again, I want to thank everyone for being here. It's wonderful, and I'm honored to be spending a little bit of time here this afternoon, this morning for some of you, here talking about some drawings and techniques. I'll start off sharing some of my work, a few of my drawings, just to give you an idea of the types of drawings that I do and give you some examples of techniques and ways of drawing, and I'll be explaining to you what I used when I was drawing these things. The main thing that we'll be diving into today is about mark making and how to actually put down the marks on a piece of paper to explain a certain type of texture, certain type of form, and essentially what we're going to be thinking about is how light falls on a form and in return gives us the visual information to allow us to know what it is and allow us to know the technique or the texture that we are depicting. These are some buffaloes. I go to the Natural History Museum here in New York City quite a bit to go and draw there. They have some beautiful dioramas. And this is a similar technique to stippling, I would say, but I started off with the pencil that is a water-soluble pencil first, and stippled it with a little bit of water in a brush, kind of like this. So that's some texture there of the buffalo's kind of coarse, rough fur. Here I'm using the Zebra ballpoint pen, a red ballpoint pen here to draw these moose. I also have another smaller version of it, a sketch of it from a few years ago. And so this is essentially crosshatching. And crosshatching is really my favorite form of mark making when drawing really anything. By controlling the width of the line, the space between the lines, how much I overlap the lines and where I overlap the lines. If I can really maintain control of where all those lines are going, then essentially I have the freedom to create almost any kind of texture that we can see with our eyes that are in nature. These are some other examples of, this is a ballpoint pen drawing, again, with a little bit of colored pencil after I did the ballpoint pen drawing to bring in some of that color into the beak and a little bit into the wings and the body of the bird. Here, once again, these are all done with the Zebra pen. Another ballpoint pen drawing with a little bit of color added to it. This one, actually, the color was, you can see it, that warm tone was put down before I did the pen drawing, and then I filled it up with the pen afterwards. Here's something a little bit different. This is with a brush marker. The Zebra makes these wonderful Zensation brush markers that come with different sized tips. And so this is a little bit more of a graphic way of drawing, graphic representation. And this one, most of these are from the Natural History Museum. I'll show you a couple more animals. Here I'm using two different values of brush marker, one gray, one black. And I'm laying down the gray first to get the big shapes and big values. And I'm relying on the darker black brush marker to give me the deeper tones, the deeper values. Here's one more. This is with a pencil, done from a photograph. Here you can see all the different ways that I'm manipulating the lines. This one very much so. I started with a graphic, very, very black and white line drawing. It took a little bit of time to measure and organize all these scales here. And I really wanted to achieve the different feelings between the hard sort of body, right, of this pangolin, as well as the softness and the different texture that the tree branch, the trunk, gives us visually. And a little shine of the eyeball there too. So those are some animals. Here's one more, actually. This is a recent one I did. One of the more recent ones I did. This one is made up from my imagination. Just starting with tubes, essentially. And we're going to be doing this together in just a little bit. I'll share with everyone how I break these things down and what I think about when I'm rendering the values of them all with different textures and different lighting. This was done with the ballpoint pen, the Zebra F402. F402 is one of my favorite pens. And I thought I'd add this one. It is October, Halloween's coming up soon. This is a drawing that I've been working on currently. I'm thinking of adding some other things here, but this is also done with the ballpoint pen. So we'll be talking about how to form shapes and how to observe light and apply different lines and strokes to create all types of textures, smooth textures, rough textures, scales. Those are some animals. I'll show you a couple different ones here of some people. This is done with a pencil here. Again, the different types of values, the different types of textures. I really love to explore what a single drawing tool can allow me to create. This was done with a mechanical pencil. And just by laying down an organized set of lines and marks, and when it comes to hair, thinking about every strand of hair, single strands, but also big clumps of hair and big areas of, tubes of hair that I can look at as more of a simple form to understand how the light is falling onto such a form. This completely different type of hair here. This is done with the ballpoint pen. Okay. Different textures, the wrinkly shirt to the wiry beard and the hair and the skin and the glasses. All done with a single tool, a ballpoint pen. And so this is the kind of thing that really excites me when I'm drawing with a pen, cross-hatching and making marks with the same tool, just by manipulating the value difference, the edges, and how I organize the strokes onto the page that in the end it explains and also expresses, the texture and the value and the form of the object or the person that I'm drawing. This is done with the pencil, same thing. I'll show you one more. This is more of an environment here with people involved. And I'll be explaining, these things and how I think about them. But really, when I draw on a white piece of paper, I'm essentially just taking light away. Each mark that I put down with the pen, I'm taking light away. So whatever I leave behind is being illuminated. And so I have to sort of think about where the light's coming from, what type of light it is that I'm trying to draw, manipulate, and also then the texture. But we'll go through those things as I explain the techniques. So we have some questions coming in here. I guess I haven't addressed this. You can definitely ask questions on the chat, but we will also have a little bit of time at the end, maybe about 10 minutes or so, for any more specific questions. We'll have a Q&A time put aside at the end of our session today. Thank you everyone for your comments. So I'll answer this one question from Ali. most of my drawings that I showed you today, actually all my drawings that I showed you today, if it was done with a pen, I just jump right in with the pen. If you check out my Instagram, there are actually some time-lapse videos and things like that. And Zebra also has put up a couple of time-lapse videos of my drawings in the past through their site and their YouTube channel, where you can watch my process and how I begin. But I'll also be explaining a little bit of that as we move forward today. Okay, so I'm going to show you an example. So those are some of my drawings and kind of the materials that I have used to achieve those drawings. Today I'll be using the wonderful fountain pens that Zebra makes. I like to start with lighter colors, but we'll get to the building up process in a little bit. I'll also be using some of these Sarasa clip pens. They come in really nice colors, really wonderful colors. So I'll show you the whole pack here. So at the end of our lesson or workshop today, when we're all really experts at thinking about this, you can start mixing these colors to get full, range of the chromatic values in your drawing. I'll also be dabbling a little bit with the Mildliner, which give a really nice undertone value to either draw on top of it. Or what's nice is these Sarasa clips are like really nice and like waterproof. Like within a few seconds, it dries really nicely. So you can start putting some values of the marker on top. We'll try some of that in a few minutes. But to get started, we're going to go back and forth a little bit. This is one of the first things that I like to think about and exercise when I am drawing, thinking about mark making and thinking about cross-hatching. And it's to be able to create a very simple yet very effective grayscale. And one of the reasons why I love cross-hatching so much in form of mark making when I'm drawing, is because I can really control the amount of lines that go down, and like I was saying before, hence how much light I let into the drawing or how much light I take away from the drawing. So let's start. If everyone has a piece of paper with them and a pen or a pencil, your favorite drawing tools will work for this. I'll start off using the fountain pen here. All right, so we're going to try a simple grayscale. I'm going to take this away, and we will draw together this grayscale. And then we'll start thinking about light and shadow, okay? So I'll draw kind of bigger here for everyone to be able to see, but you really don't need to make this drawing any bigger than maybe, the size of 2 or 3 fingers, okay? But I'm going to make mine a little bit bigger so everyone can see. I start off by creating an open rectangle like this, okay? Doesn't have to be perfect. That's one of my mottos. Drawings are actually not ever perfect, and that's the beauty of it. And then, so I want 3 equal divisions. So the reason I leave it open is because once I determine my first rectangle, that helps me determine my second. And then now I know I need to go a little bit more to try and get a nice kind of even rectangle like this. I know this one's a little bit bigger, right? I know. But that's okay. So this is going to be a 3-tone or 3-value grayscale. Okay. And so my first value is just white of the paper. So you're already done with that one. Okay. You've already done one value. And before I start this, I'm going to get warmed up. I'm going to get my wrist, my elbow, and my shoulder warmed up for this. I'm going to do a couple strokes here. I'm going to try to keep them as even as possible. And again, you can make your squares or rectangles much smaller than this one, okay? So you don't take as much time filling it up. So I'm going to practice that, okay? I'm going to practice this. Okay, lateral and vertical lines. And when I do this, I also like to do both directions. left to right, right to left, down, up, down, up. So this is kind of a good practice because in order to get a good, a drawing that you are proud of, you need to be able to control your lines a little bit. So this is something that I do very, very regularly. If you're confident now of getting a nice, evenly spaced straight line all the way down like that, then you're going to try to get a straight line from this line all the way to this line. We're covering square 2 and 3. If you're not confident to go all the way, you can just do one at a time like this. You can just do square 2. And then when you're done that, you can go to square 3. But I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to go all the way across. And I like to leave, well, I'll explain a little bit more about letting light in or leaving light behind on a page. So essentially, the closer these lines are to each other, the less light you're letting into the drawing, or less light you are leaving behind on the page. So that's something we'll think about a little bit further as we move forward. I'm gonna try to go the other way here, challenge myself a little bit. So this exercise normally would take 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes if you want to be very, very careful. So as you can see, I'm going both directions, left and right, left and right. Okay, so now I have value 2. Okay. Now you all know what I'm going to do next here. I'm going to go up and down and fill block number 3. And I'm going to try here. I'm going to stand up actually. Sometimes I like to stand. I have a standing desk. Instead of using my fingers and wrists a lot, I like to use my elbow and my shoulder. I think that's really a better way to sort of control your lines. So I'm going to go up and down, up and down. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be as close as you can get it. Your lines can be wiggly. As long as it's creating a value on the surface of your paper, then you're doing a good job. It's all about texture, right? And not everything that we see, that we observe around us has a smooth texture, right? Some do, some have rough textures. So you have created a 3-value grayscale using crosshatching, okay? Now you can make another 2 small squares just to give yourself some examples. And we're going to call that 4 and 5. And 4 and 5 are just going to have at least value of 3 in it. So I'm going to extend this line here just a little so that I have a clear understanding of the division of the 2 squares. I'm just going to go in here quickly. Not going to be precise or perfect with it. And I'm going to put in the value of 3. And I'm going to get ready to put in the other angle. I'm sure some of you out there already know what I'm about to do next. I kind of gave you a hint earlier. Up and down, up and down. So in order to get the next set of values, then I would like to change my angle to 45 degrees like this. So I'll practice that. I'll fill an invisible box here with my 45 degrees going one way and 45 degrees going the other way. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect 45 degrees. It just has to be. The important thing for me is that the lines that I put down are nice and even and as straight as I can make it. And the more you do this, obviously, the more you will get better at it. So 4 and 5 are both going to get one direction. I'm going to start with this direction first. 4 and 5 are going to get, all of it is going to be filled with this direction. And now I have achieved my fourth value. Okay. I'll give everyone a minute to catch up here. Yeah, and if you are ready, you can go ahead and fill up the box number 5. And essentially what you're doing is you're creating a perpendicular angle to number 4, and you're just filling up number 5. Now you have 4 overlapping lines. So this is what I like to call patch hatching. As you can see, the values go from white to dark, not completely black, right? Or this is blue, but not completely filled up. There's some space there still, but you can see the difference of how light this is and how dark that is. And then you can see the progression of it getting darker and darker and darker. If you want to think further about this, these are 45 degrees, okay? And half of 45 is 22.5 degrees, right? And so if I have my lateral and vertical lines, which I have here, and then now I have my 45s, which I have here, my 22.5 would be just in between those, like that. And so I'll do a tinier, smaller one so I don't take up as much time and space here. I'll quickly put this together. And if you want to practice this further, getting more values and getting more darker, right? Eliminating more light, then using patch hatching technique, you can think about adding more value. Okay, so that's my number 5. So if I want that to be number 6, then I'm going to add that 22.5 degrees going this way. Trying my best to keep the lines parallel, even. That's the trick, is to be able to draw the lines as evenly as possible. You see how much value is added there, right? So I'm strategically adding the same amount of value, but in a evenly spaced angle, so that I'm creating more depth in my shadows. And you can tell obviously that after number 6, this one, what we used is this one for number 6. So perpendicular to that would be this angle, this 22.5 degree angle for 7, and you can just keep going and going. Okay, that makes sense, right? Another thing that you can practice afterwards, I'll do a small version of it here, is you can do a curve like this. Divide that into 3. And when you're doing a 3-value curve, what I'm trying here is my lines are going to follow that curve as closely, as evenly, and as parallel as I can. Right? A little bit wiggly. It's okay. Nothing's perfect. There you go. So now what I'm doing is I'm starting to really incorporate form into my hatch marks. Just that curve. Number 3 is a little bit similar to this number 3, just straight lines. But just to elaborate on that a little bit, here I'm creating squares up to number 3. Here I'm creating sort of diamonds like this, right? Here I'm creating these, what are these shapes called? I don't know what those shapes are called. I'm creating these diamond shapes in a way, okay? And so you can see the difference of the line and shape orientations that I'm leaving behind. Parallelogram, thank you, Ellen, with slightly curved lines on the top, right? And then these shapes. So when I mix these shapes together, triangles, squares, parallelograms, right, diamond shapes, then you're building more and more texture up, basically, okay? So that's something that I have to understand in order to, create any kind of form. So another thing that you can practice here is harder edges, sharper edges. So I'm going to do the same thing, like that. So 1, 2, and 3. Very similar. So I'll just do this square first. And then I'll go over here and fill this square, or sorry, this parallelogram. And then fill that up again like this to create actual diamonds over here. So now what we're doing is we're doing both things. We're creating value and form at the same time, right? And so this is something you can practice. You know, you can do different curves if you want, right? So on and so forth here, you can create. So this is really just a form of practicing your control and hand-eye coordination. And again, as I explained before, I like to go both directions. I think that's a really good way to practice drawing, is to go up and down, make lines going up, make lines going down, make lines going from left to right, as well as from right to left, to sort of get your muscle memory working out for you, okay? So this is my 3 scale value, 3 value of grayscale, and then up to here would be 6 values, okay? And so you can see just with 6 values, how dark you can actually go, all right? Now that's application, okay? After application, I have to think about where and how I'm going to apply these things to what I want to draw, and what I'm looking at, or what I'm imagining in my mind. And a little bit of perspective is necessary, but maybe before perspective, we'll go into form drawing, okay? Now we're going to draw some geometric shapes together. I'm going to switch colors here. Switch over to black, okay? So I'm going to start with just the closest line to me. We're going to draw a cube, okay? We've already done this. I'm going to draw a 45-degree angle going up. I'm going to draw a 45-degree angle going up this way. Very simple, right? Essentially, I'm drawing a Y, and then I'm going to keep the angle of this exactly the same and the length of this exactly the same as well. I'm going to draw another line over here. And then I'm going to draw this same length of line and same angle over here. Kind of a pixelated balloon, okay, on a string. So you've guessed it. Again, I'm going to draw this line over here, same length, same angle. And over here, I'm going to do the same thing. And essentially, this is sort of an isometric box that I'm drawing. And this line right here, same as this one here, I'm going to put that over here like this. And I'm going to close this one off and draw it like that, okay? So I have a box. So we're going to draw a cylinder, and we're going to draw a cone, and we're going to draw a pyramid, okay? A cylinder, I'm going to start sort of at the height of this. I'm going to draw the top of the cylinder as tall as the top of this box is, okay? So I'm going to draw an ellipse. I'm going to draw the top of the ellipse first, half. Again, it's not going to be perfect. The bottom half is going to be the same shape as the top half. And look how imperfect my ellipse is. It's totally fine. And the side is going to have the same length as this one, like this. And basically at the end, I'm going to draw the bottom part of that ellipse, like this. There you go. Now you have a cylinder. I'm going to start at the top here again. I'm going to line it up to have the same height as the box and the cylinder. I'm going to draw a cone, which is probably the simplest one to draw, because I'm just going to draw that shape, that almost triangle. I'm going to end it at the height, same as the cylinder. Keep it parallel. And then this bottom part is going to be basically the same. as the cylinder. And now you have a cone. And similar to the cone, I'm going to draw a pyramid shape, a prism shape. I'm going to start with the same as cylinder, but in this one, I'm going to draw a straight line down the center to meet the bottom part of the shapes like that, and match those lines in like this. And so in a way, we're kind of drawing form, but we're kind of also drawing perspective at the same time. And so just like what we practiced with our grayscale, right? Putting the lines in, we're going to put those lines in kind of following the form of these shapes, okay? And that's really essentially the whole idea of cross-hatching, is that you're following the form with the hatch marks that you're putting down, and we will light these in just a second, okay? In order to get the center, there is a trick to it. I'm going to take a different color here just to keep it separated here. You know, essentially this is a box. We're looking at a box in perspective, right? And so to get a center of this, I can just kind of lightly draw an X going right across from the corners like this. And where that meets, where that X meets, I'm going to draw the same angled line as the top and bottom. And that visually becomes the center of the form. So I'm going to do that again, going vertical. So I'm essentially what I'm doing is I'm dividing the side of this box into 4 sections. And then I'm going to follow that line and go this way. And follow this line and go this way. Same angle. Okay. And so with that in mind, with that X in mind and knowing where that placement is, I'm going to guess. I'm going to throw a dart in the dark here and guess. And so that way, I have divided this box into 8 imagined sections. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing here, and it's a little bit easier to get the center of this cylinder because all I have to do is just mark halfway from here to here. And I'm just going to follow that same curve from the center, going up that way. I'm going to pinpoint the center there and center here between, basically I'm getting the quarters. I'm going to follow that same curve going up like this. Okay. And then I'm going to pinpoint the center of the ellipse right at the top, right there. And I'm going to follow this angle because essentially, you know, an ellipse shape has infinite angles to it. And so to determine a nice 45-degree angle, I'm just going to follow what I used over here for the box. So I'm just going to draw a straight line this way, like that. It's a little bit off, but it's close enough. And then from where it meets the edge, I'm going to go all the way down straight, like that. And for the next one, I'm going to follow this line and meet the center. And once again, I'm going to bring that line down like this. Pretty fun, right? I mean, this is a really simple way to draw forms, but really, this is all the things I'm thinking about when I'm drawing any kind of figure, any kind of animal, or any even the, you know, I mean, buildings are actually some of the more simple things to draw because they're all right angled and they all have straight edges, most of them. Okay. So for this one, I'm going to go down. Let's go from top to bottom. I'm going to pick about half. And that's one of the reasons why I like to keep each of the drawings when I do them the same height, so that I have an idea of where the halfway point is as I'm moving along. And from that point there, I'm going to follow the same curve as the bottom, going around like this, pick about halfway there, pick about halfway there, and keep following, keep following. And the ellipse is going to get smaller on this one as it goes up because it's tapering into the top, right? And for the determination of where these vertical lines go, I'm going to take a look at where the point here meets at the bottom of the ellipse here. I'm going to sort of pinpoint it there, similar, and then I'm going to go up to the top. Like this. Same thing here, pinpoint where that meets, and this time I'll go from top to bottom. Like this. Okay, and then we'll finish this one off, very similar to the cylinder, but with a little more angle to it, right? So there's that, and then halfway point, and over down this way like this. And so these are the simplest sort of breakdowns of the forms and of the surface, okay? And so when I'm shading this, thinking about lighting and thinking about cross-hatching techniques, I'll take another color here. I'm going to imagine that there is a light shining down on these objects from over here, okay? And just like we did with this cross-hatching method, using the angles that we've already determined, we're going to determine that this is the furthest edge or furthest plane from the light. And I'm going to go right across in that same angle, filling the whole side like this. So already it's starting to create a value and create some depth in the form. Because I know this is only my value 2, I'm going to leave the top as my value 1. Because the light's coming down from the top, I think this side could also use a little bit of value. So this left-hand side of the box will essentially stay as my value 2. And then the right side will become value 3. Now they look exactly the same, right? But as soon as I add this vertical line over here, it will then turn into a slightly darker shade, evenly spaced. And once you have created this box, you have successfully drawn a 3-dimensional box using the cross-hatching method. Simple cross-hatching method. Okay. We'll do this one together, and then you can take these 2 shapes on your own time and you can try it out afterwards. But I will share with you this one because this one's a little bit trickier because it has a curve to it, right? And it doesn't have this clean edge for us to use, you know what I mean? And so what we're going to do is we're going to think about turning the shadow from halfway, and you have to be kind of careful here, and you're going to be curving up that line from an imaginary point of transition from light to dark, light to shadow. And you're going to try your best here to keep it as parallel and as even as possible, following the curves that you have already established little by little, one by one. I'm going to try to go the other way now, practice my opposite direction. Okay. And because this is curving away from us, I'm going to bring in some of those lines on the side, just a little bit, feather it in a little bit, and that will help with it looking more dimensional. So we have value 1, we have value 2. In order to get value 3, I'm going to start a little bit further in from the start of that shadow. And I'm just going to create my value 3 over here. Bring it a little bit more. And if you want to play around with not stippling, but like dotting or what is it, dotted line kind of idea, then you can also try something like this. where you have, let's say, a form turning, like a round form turning like that. And you can start with a line that's not a full line. You can sort of do a dotted line and then get into a more solid line. And that way, you're starting to create some texture there. Okay. How are we doing on time here? So I think we have a good amount of time now to think about texture. And this is really where the fun of mark making comes into play right here. So I'm just using either a ballpoint pen or a fountain pen or Sarasa clip to do these things here. This is essentially kind of what we were doing just now, okay, with a little bit more elaboration and more angular hatch marks, which again, what I call patch hatch or patch hatching. This is stippling. I'm sure you've all seen lots of drawings done with stippling method. It's where you start just stippling with your pen and you're building up value one dot at a time. And the closer the dots become, the darker value that you have. Here is a similar method to the cross-hatching that I explained to you earlier, but it's a bit more messy, where I'm just building up values going all different directions, giving me a little bit more freedom to go around forms. As you can see, I've already kind of created a different kind of bump on that one there compared to this one, which is more of a straight cylinder. Then you have fur, right? Which essentially what I'm doing there is following the contour really of each and every strand of hair or fur that might be on a body of an animal, but at the same time thinking about light and how light is hitting that form and just applying a darker value to where the shadow is turning and lighter as it gets around to the light and more on the reflective light side on the edge back there. And this is scribbling. Okay, I'm just sort of constantly moving my pen like this and using a little bit of pressure where I want the dark lines, dark marks to be, and using less pressure where I want some of the light to come in. Okay, so we'll do this. We'll try this exercise using, let me use a Sarasa clip here. I'll use another color just to have some fun. I'll use a red color. So I'm also going to try to, at the same time, explain how I understand lighting, because form is one thing, perspective is one thing, but lighting really is something that we have to observe and try our best to understand how it actually falls on a surface in a form. And so I'm going to start, I'm going to just draw a cylinder. Once again, that ellipse is a little bit better. There we go. Okay. And so let's see, let's try the scribbling one because it's the most free, kind of fun one. I'm also going to draw out a little shape here for the cast shadow, just to give myself a placement to go. I'm not going to go in and draw my grid line in here. I'm just going to imagine the grid line being there and the light's coming down from here. Okay. And so when the light hits this object, I'm going to think about the highlight area where the biggest form of light is and the brightest form of light is hitting the object, which is right here, the highlight. Okay. I'm going to leave that behind. And I know the form of this is a vertical form. So I'm just going to lightly start scribbling in a shadow right here. Now I'm going to think about this as value 2. It's nice to have the grayscale next to you when you're doing this. Also, it's nice to have it next to you. And so I'm thinking about value 2. And just like what we did earlier, just filled up 2 and 3 all at once. I'm going to do that same thing, and I'm going to fill up all the shadow area, thinking about the value, looking back and forth between where that guide is. I'm going to fill the whole thing with an even scribble. So there's my value. There's my 2 value right there. Okay. And now we have a division between highlight and shadow shape, right? Light shape, shadow shape. I'm also going to go in here and fill up my cast shadow. All my little circles are the same size. And my goal here is to create one even value for the shadow shapes here. Okay. And after the highlight, I'll do a little bit here too, because we have the form is turning. So kind of lightly, very, very lightly, I'm just going to indicate that the edge over here is turning. Okay, just a little bit. And so you have a kind of a sharper edge here. I'll soften that up just a little bit. Just touching the tip of the pen just a bit, softening up that edge, because edges are very important in explaining, just like what we were doing here with the boxes, round edge versus a straight edge. You know, this is a softer transition, and this is a bit more of a harder transition. Okay, and so because we have a cylinder here, I want to transition a little bit softly. And so now we have a little bit of the transition and our first value, value 2. And so the turning shadow is going to be value 3. So I'm going to go back in there, same size circles. I'm going to create a strip, a band going from top to bottom, and of dark value like this. I'm going to leave a little bit of that feathering on the side there, just to explain that it's a turning rounded form. And then on this side, which is the reflected shadow or the illuminated shadow, as some people call it, I'm going to slowly taper into that area and lighten up my value 3 to go and meet my value 2. Softly, soft transition once again. Slowly, slowly, slowly. And then I'm going to leave that edge, just the value 2 right there. And so if you have created that transition from highlight to turning shadow to core shadow and then to illuminated shadow, then that explains a nice curving surface. So I'll write those down here just for you to know I'm referring to. So we have highlight, which is right here. That's highlight. We have turning shadow, which is right here. Just that transition part right there. Then we have core shadow, which is this big whole thing. Okay, and then we have illuminated shadow. Which is right here. Okay, and then let's finish this little sketch off by darkening up our cast shadow right here. So I'm going to do slightly smaller circles, scribbles to get into that corner area. And the darkest part of the cast shadow is going to be the part that's touching the object. It's the least amount of light that gets filled in there, flooded in there. I'll keep it darker, sharper. The edges of the shadows are going to be sharper at the closest part where it touches the object, and keep that dark. And then slowly I'm going to lighten up on my grip. As well, I'm going to soften up the edges just a little bit. And then slowly get lighter and lighter. And there you have your cast shadow right here. Now with that understanding, right, then you can apply it essentially to all these different types of textures, right? And so as long as you are indicating highlight clearly, turning shadow, which is that little transition before it gets to the core shadow, which is the darkest shadow that we have. And then you have the illuminated shadow over here on the other side of the form, right? And the illuminated shadow happens because, because of atmosphere, really. And the object that this cylinder is sitting on, the surface that it's sitting on right here. When the light comes down and illuminates this object, it's going to hit this surface and bounce back up onto this object here, onto the cylinder. And that's why we have the illuminated shadow. I forgot one thing here. We should definitely indicate a little bit of value here on the top surface. And this is to create a bit of atmosphere, that small kind of gradients from the back edge. Of course, this whole top is facing the light, right? So it should be bright. But if you think about depth, and if you think about the vicinity and the space that you have between your eyes and the object that you're looking at, this back edge is further from us and this front edge is closer to us. And so if you create a higher contrast in the area that's closer to us, then it's going to help in keep creating that illusion of depth. So same thing, if there is a surface that you're drawing on, try to put a little value, right, on the far edge of that surface or the tabletop. A little bit less here because it's closer to the light. A little bit more here because it's far away from the light. So I'm thinking about two things here. I'm thinking about vicinity, space, and I'm thinking about the light and the strength of the light. Then you can start thinking about, is it a direct spotlight? Is it a cloudy day outside and it's more of a atmospheric light, not a direct light? Is it artificial light versus natural light? And so when you think about all the different types of lights that you can observe, that will also help you determine how you would shade and render your drawings according to what kind of light and how strong that light is. And the more you get into the value transitions, how soft and how sharp the edges are, you can either create a very, very believable and realistic kind of texture, or you could leave it at just a graphic representation of something. Let's pick another color here. Red's a nice color. Let me pick a green, and we'll do one last little sketch here. That was, this is scribbling. This is a really fun way to do it, right? Because you're never really picking up your pen off the page and you're just sort of having fun with it, scribbling around. So I'll draw a cylinder once again on a surface. And this time I'm going to think about what I showed you earlier a little bit, the fur. Fur is really fun to draw. Okay. Again, I'm thinking about highlight, turning shadow, core shadow, illuminated shadow, and the cast shadow. Thing with fur is each and every hair, let's say on a bear or something, it's a tiny little cylinder, right? Each hair is a tiny little cylinder. And so when you have hundreds of them, each stroke that I put down becomes essentially a hair, right? Or fur. And so as soon as I just change the direction of my stroke, and also what I'm doing is I'm starting heavy and I'm tapering off to a thinner point like this, so that the starting point becomes the starting point, the point that the hair is attached to the body. And then the end here, the thinner tapered end, is the edge that finishes off that hair. And so just changing up my direction just slightly here and there to get that sort of natural feel of hair, I'm going to start off with my core shadow. And as I'm doing that, I can indicate a little bit of my turning shadow, just little tick marks here and there. I'll go back to my core shadow, value 2, right? I'm going to take that value 2 all the way to the edge. And what's fun with this one is I can, as soon as I get to the edge of my form, I can think about what the silhouette of this will look like. So I can start to really create the shape of the edge there with the texture of the hair. So I have my value 2 set up. It's already looking kind of hairy, right? But it's still very graphic. I'm gonna indicate this slight turning shadow on this side. Keep it a little bit lighter than this side. Turning shadow a little bit. And because, you know, when you're doing furry stuff, when you have a very smooth sort of cylinder like this, the highlight can become very bright. But when you have something furry, let's think about like a bear, right? A bear that has like a darker fur to it. They're essentially gonna be dark. So I'm gonna go in here. That's the difference between light hitting on a surface that is, let's say, a lighter color, or the color of the actual object, which sometimes artists will call it local color. The local color of the object here, which is a bear, is dark already. And so as much light as it could be receiving, it's still going to be very, you know, textural and dark. And so what we have to do in order to compensate for that is start making the transition to the core shadow just a little bit more obvious, a little bit darker, so that the form turning can be observed very clearly. So I'm just going to go down here and create my core shadow. And then slowly bring it lighter as I get to the other side. Little by little. And slowly bring it a little lighter. So as you can see, the transition is exactly the same. The only thing that's different is the way that I'm applying my marks. And just by doing that, I can create all types of textures. Okay. Now the cast shadow, when I'm putting down cast shadows, I do often think about the surface structure of where the shadow is hitting. And so this is a flat surface, let's say. I'm going to give myself this idea that it's a flat surface like this. Okay. And then I'm going to use that same angular idea. Follow that plane. I'm going to create my shadows starting with value 2, going to value 3, thinking about my edges being sharper where it's touching the object and softer as it's getting away to, and then value 4, I'm thinking about a 45-degree angle that is on this perspective angle of this plane. Get to number 5 as well here. Just a little bit more value. Okay. Now, we have some questions coming in. All right. I think we're getting close to our end. So let's have some questions here. Handouts. Yes, these can be available. We can work through on the email. Yes, you did get it, didn't you? I think it's also through the Michael's website. There's a link there. If it's a black dog, we would do that opposite with white, black dog, or black paper. Lindsay, I don't know exactly what. Oh, you think you got it? Okay, cool. I mean, you could also essentially reverse this if you're drawing on black paper with like a white pen. Then you're doing the opposite. You'll be indicating where all the light is, right? And you'll be just bringing in tiny little bits of light on this side in order to indicate the reflective shadow. And then lots of white over here. And then almost no white at all if you're using black paper on the core shadow side, okay? Examples from class. I can take photos of this and somehow maybe we could arrange for people to have these, yeah, have these notes, photos of these notes. Let's see. Any other questions here? And so basically, as long as I am clearly understanding and thinking about the form, like this, and I'm clearly understanding the geometry in the form, right? Then understanding the light, once again, after I understand the form, then I'm clearly then applying afterwards this idea to my understanding of form and light. And depending on the type of texture I want, using different techniques to achieve those textures. The top of the shadow, would the top of the fur be shadowed a bit? Yeah, top here would be shadowed. Let's say this whole thing is furry. Then I'll just sort of pick the direction of where I want the fur to go. And with that same idea, maybe it's starting at the center and like fanning out towards the outside. So I can create a little bit of texture. And do the same thing. It's kind of weird. Top, stump. Very, all right. Thank you, everyone. That was really fun, wonderful. Once again, I am always sharing my drawings and lots of my time-lapse videos and all those things on my Instagram. So if you want to follow along, this is my handle here. You can check out my drawings and what's going on with my art and my career and shows that are happening and different types of things. So yes, thank you everyone for your time and your attention. I hope you had some fun today. There might have been some questions that you might have, perhaps. Maybe we can spend 5 minutes if anybody has any specific questions. Some people have also been asking during the session, so thank you for your questions. All right. Pen or pencil? I think pencils are great because you can erase it. And so when you're practicing, I guess pencils are great. But I like to use pen because it allows me to really commit to every line that I'm making. And just as you saw today, even as I was sharing with you my my sketches and ideas and different ways of putting down drawings, you know, I don't make anything nothing's perfect, right? Everything has a little thing to it that is a little off, you know. but little by little, you get a little closer, one by one, one drawing at a time, a little closer to where you want to take your drawing. So I would say practice with both pencil and pen, and try to really think about how you're putting down that line, and each line that you put down, how is it actually explaining what you want, what you're looking at, or what you're imagining that you want to draw. You know, so associating every line to the object that is being made, that connection. And that's why I like to think in a very simple way like this, because if I can break down the simple geometry of anything that I'm looking at, then it makes it much more easier for me to actually tackle a drawing. Because, you know, if I'm looking at a drawing, if I'm looking at a composition like this, and I'm thinking about every tile and every light and every pipe in this composition that I have to get to, you know, it's too much information. So what I have to do to help myself is think of these as, you know, big blocks. That's a cylinder right there. And these are, you know, prism shapes and big blocks. This whole floor is just the top of a box. And this back wall is just another side of a box, right? And depending on where the lights are, in this situation, there are lights everywhere because it's a subway station. It's just illuminating the whole room, right? So I'm thinking about form and light. And at the end, texture, metal, concrete, tile, plastic, metal, right? Things like that. The arm, you wanted to see the arm. So there's the arm here, kind of resting on an edge of a table that has some fabric on it. So the smoothness of the skin, but the same form. All this is just a cylinder and a cylinder, right? This cylinder is a little tapered at the wrist. And then you have another box for the hand. Same idea, but this is just furry, kind of like a werewolf arm or something like that, right? And so you can see where the lights are hitting, right? And just like I was explaining earlier, you know, local color of that arm, let's say a werewolf, is going to have very dark fur. And so as much as just the skin of an arm is catching a lot of the light, dark fur is not going to catch as much of the light. The local color of the fur is already so dark. And so the little highlights in there that I'm indicating, the sharper those highlights are, the more kind of wet or greasy maybe the fur might look. And the softer I make it, less contrast, is not, it's gonna look like it's just been shampooed or something. You know what I mean? How long does it take for me to, so, you know, a drawing like this will take me a couple of weeks to do, you know, sitting down every couple of days, a few hours at a time. So all in all, this probably takes, you know, 60, 70 hours to create. Whereas a sketch like this took about 8 hours, maybe 10 hours, one sitting, you know, kind of a long shift, you can say. It also depends on, you know, the inspiration, the fun that I'm having, right? When I'm having a lot of fun, it doesn't really feel like time is going by. So, all right. How long this kind of drawing takes you? Okay, I think I answered that. Awesome. Thank you for your comments, and thank you for your questions, everyone. Yeah, follow along my Instagram. I will have drawings and stuff that I'm doing regularly posted there. Follow along with Michael's. Michael's always puts on some really fun bookshops through their website. And yay, Zebra. Thank you, Zebra, for making wonderful pens to draw with. So once again, thank you everyone for your time and for your attention, and have a wonderful rest of your day.